So let's think first about some introductory issues, the standard sorts of things that one worries about in approaching a biblical text. Who was it written by? Tradition attributes it to John, the son of Zebedee, one of the first five disciples that Jesus called, according to the accounts in the Synoptic Gospels. Peter and Andrew and James and John, all up there in the Sea of Galilee. This John, son of Zebedee, or whoever it is, the tradition says it's John, the son of Zebedee, is usually identified as the character who appears in the text as the beloved disciple. And he appears at several places: at the Last Supper, lying beside Jesus. That's the way people dined in those days. He's there at the cross and assumes responsibility for, or is taken under the wing of, the mother of Jesus. Exactly what the relationship there is, we could worry about a little bit, but there's some new family being created. He's there at the tomb, where he has a little road race with Peter, beats Peter to the tomb, but lets Peter in first. Peter goes away scratching his head. The beloved disciple believes. That says something about him, doesn't it? What does he believe? Question that some people ask. And he's there too at the appearance of Jesus at Galilee, the fish fry in John 21. He may be, some people suspect, that he is there as the other disciple who pops up in chapter 18 at the house of the high priest and is therefore known to the high priest. Not entirely clear. All of the other indications, all the other places refer to him as the disciple that Jesus loved. So we have this character in the text that tradition identifies in a certain way. Is that tradition something that we can affirm? Well, maybe, maybe not. It would appear that the beloved disciple who's in the text as a character and who emerges in the tradition of reading the text as the author was a real human being who died. And one of the things that's discussed in John 21 is, did Jesus predict that he'd come back before this beloved disciple died? And if he died, did that undercut that promise? What's behind that is probably a saying of Jesus that we encounter in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9. There are some standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom of heaven coming in glory. So was that something that applied to a particular individual? And if so, who was it? Was it John, the son of Zebedee? Maybe, or maybe it was someone else with the same name. We know of a fellow named the elder or presbyter John. Eusebius, the church historian of the 4th century, talks about him and refers to sources that mention him from the 2nd century. And a number of contemporary scholars say, well, maybe it's John, the elder, who is really responsible for the 4th gospel. That's how we get the name John associated with the text. I'm not sure if we can ever discover who the real author was, but I think we can note something of the function of the author figure in the text. And the fact that the author is decidedly anonymous, I think, plays a role. There are two main functions, I think, that the author serves. One is to invite the reader into the text. Don't you, as a reader, if you're responding positively to what's in the text, want to be there at the side of Jesus at his supper? Don't you want to be there at the cross? Don't you want to be there at the resurrection and with him in his resurrected life? Yeah, you might want to identify with the character in the text. And we know from ancient theoreticians like Aristotle that it was assumed that people would identify with a character, usually the protagonist, in a work of drama, for instance. Can't quite do that with the protagonist here, since he has a very special relationship with God, but you might be able to identify with someone else. So perhaps that's what this figure is doing. But I think the figure is doing something else. The figure is clearly identified within the text as an eyewitness, as someone who bears testimony, reliable testimony to Jesus, who he is and what he means. But generally, when you, in a legal document or in any other circumstance where there's someone bearing testimony and giving witness, you want to know who that person is. And I think one of the things that the anonymity of the beloved disciple does is to invite you to go searching for who that witness is. And this is not speculation, it's a matter of fact. For the last 2,000 years, people have been searching for the identity of the beloved disciple. There was a book done a couple of years ago by a colleague at Princeton, Jim Charlesworth, a very well-known New Testament scholar, which I happened to see at a Society of Biblical Literature meeting at one of the book desks, picked it up, looked it over, saw what the thesis was, checked to see if he was citing any of my work, the usual vanity thing, and knew right away that he had it wrong, because he wanted to identify the beloved disciple. He knew who it was. He gave you all the history of the search for the beloved disciple. So you see that, in fact, it did bring people back into the text time and time again. He came up with the notion that it was Thomas. And I knew right away it couldn't be. Why? Because the beloved disciple believes in chapter 20, and Thomas is still doubting at the end of the chapter. So in any case, we had a conversation about that, and he came up with another explanation. Point here, the character of the beloved disciple within the text points to someone outside of the text, but more importantly, it invites readers into the text. And that, I think, is one of the main inferences we can make about who the author is.